Yo, what is going on, guys? Inzem here, and today we're going to be doing another video, and this time something I've been trying to do for a while, and I'm going to explain to you guys why I actually think adult Gohan is the strongest comeback character to ever exist in this game's history, not even just currently, of all time. So originally, this was supposed to just be like the strongest comeback character in recent time, but the more and more I talk to other people about it, you know, like trading ideas with like Nitro and Yasha, I kind of came to realize he just might be the best of all time, actually. And it's for a few different reasons, right? So before we explain why I think this, let's actually kind of go over what makes a good comeback character, right? So there is a few things that make a good comeback character, and I guess since we're talking about comeback characters, it'll be appropriate to make you by yourself, right? So first things first, having good frame data is really nice because you don't have an assist to extend your turns for you, so you really want to have a character who can kind of reset easily, you know, like he's a good example, right? 0, he has that, 0 again, and then you can do into this, -2. Like, you want to have a lot of good resets points because you can't use your assist to extend your turn, so you want to make sure your turns count as much as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is obviously to have good frame data so that you can kind of like stick to them, right? That's not the most important one, but it is a pretty nice one. The second really important one is to actually have strong mix-up before you get the hit. What I mean by that is when you're playing neutral and you catch your opponent at like this point, can you even hit them by yourselves? Because most characters in this game is actually designed not to really be able to hit you solo. You know, you do have your basic system mechanics, but if your opponent's being perspicacious enough, it's going to take a while to open them up with it. You still can, but you want a character who just has something a lot stronger, right? So a good example here is our friend Z Broly. The reason we made him such a potent anchor, especially in Season 3, was because that happens to you. He has just a truly unreactable command grab, meaning that his solo mix-up when he's by himself was scary enough to actually get the opponent to interact. Because if your mix-up by yourself isn't strong enough as an anchor, you're going to run into an issue where a smarter opponent would just choose to just down back you, right? Because they're going to realize that you don't really have an easy way to hit them, and the risk of trying to leave the block string and getting hit by something like a medium starter isn't, they're not going to feel the pressure to do that because they're going to be like, wow, you can't hit me anyway, so I don't have to do this, so I'm just going to wait, right? So having good solo mix-up is really, really nice. The next most important one is actually having good mix-up after you get the hit. And this is a bit different because some characters have good mix-up like trying to hit you, and then some characters have just a really good mix-up after they hit you. So the best example of this is just a really good level 3 situation, right? So Broly, again, had a really good situation where if he level 3'd you, he puts you in another mix-up just from level 3. And he could cash out a lot of damage this way, right? That is nice because, again, when you are by yourself, you want to make sure you're using your resources sparingly, and when you do use resources, because obviously you won't have that many chances to build it back because you don't have characters and assists to work with, you want to make sure that if you can put them in a really bad situation, it's like a really, really bad situation, right? That's why historically a lot of these stronger comeback characters actually had a pretty good level 3 mix, because like I said, level 3 mix-ups are the most obvious example of this, right? So the next one is actually solo neutral, and this one is a very important one because if your character does not have strong solo neutral, you won't be able to get in because, again, you don't have assist to work with, right? So a good example of this is Mazda 21. Perfect example. This button can kind of shut down a lot of characters. Like, she can zone you even when she is losing, so she doesn't have assist to protect herself, but because these options are so strong between like these and this, that she can kind of effectively kind of like relax and choose when she wants to go in. And this is super important because you might be sniping your opponent's assist out so that it's easier to approach. You might actually hit them just trying to approach you because they get impatient. A whole bunch of other things, right? Historically, Broly, especially in Season 3 before he received his Ki Blast nerfs, was another really good example of this. He would just shoot you the entire time until he felt like going in, and this is really, really important. If your character does not have strong solo neutral, their comeback potential is pretty low in my opinion, actually. So having good solo neutral is really, really important, right? The next one that is important for solo characters to have good damage by themselves. Obviously, I'm not going to touch up on this too much because the change starting in Season 3 when Limit Break got added to the game kind of fixed this for everyone. Before, only certain characters like SSJ Goku, for an example, was like a strong anchor because he did so much damage, right? Now, kind of everyone does good damage because Limit Break's a thing, so this one isn't too important, right? everyone's going to hit very hard. And the last one, and this is one of the most important ones, is how strong is your character in sparking, because especially if you're losing, especially in this version of the game where your sparking timer actually slows down a considerable amount when you are comboing the opponent, you want to make sure your character is pretty good in sparking, because if you're going to save it for your last character, then you want to have a very strong comeback potential, right? So a really good example of this was Majin 21. A bit weaker of an anchor now because she doesn't have her post level 3 mix-up, which is, you know, one of the points we talked about, but her sparking mix-up was very strong because all she had to do was do light ball, and as you can see, that's 18 frames, unreactable. And then from there, she could do this, and she can kind of loop 50-50s. Until you finally got hit. So once she puts you in a block string at sparking, it was just like, wow, I'm about to get hit very fast, right? Some other good examples is like Trunks, you know, obviously he's very strong solo mix-ups. I guess he'd be one of the best examples, right? Team Gohan's another really good example. Just being very potent in sparking is very, very important. So that's, in my opinion, like the last thing that makes a really good anchor good for making a comeback, right? So I know I kind of addressed this already, but let's just kind of go over it. On the screen I have a few different examples of some characters who are pretty good at making a comeback, right? So for starters, we have Z Broly. Everyone already knows he had good solo neutral. I'm using Hat. He still has decent, but you know, they nerfed it a little bit, so he fills that out. He did have better block strings, which is again another important one. They nerfed his block strings, so to that extent they nerfed his comeback potential a lot, right? But he still has strong solo mixed up, and he has strong mix-up once he hits you, because he level 3s you, and he can make you guess another strike threat, right? So he's a good example of this, right? Another example is Majin 21. She has very strong block strings, very strong solo neutral, pretty high damage output now because of the changes she had. Again, it's not that important, but originally she was basically the best comeback character in Season 3 because she had the level 3 mix, meaning she had mix-up on hit, right? Her solo mix-up is actually not the worst, but that wasn't the main takeaway from her. Before, it was her neutral, her pressure, and her reward for hitting you. Now, it's just kind of like really, really strong neutral, really, really strong pressure, which isn't the worst, but obviously she's a worse comeback character because of it, right? Another example of a character is GT Goku. I'm talking about his Season 2 counterpart, you know, the Menace, where he had good solo neutral because he's small, really good at staggers, you know, everything he did was safe, but more importantly, his ability to solo mix you up wasn't the best, but what happened when he hit you was you got put into Spirit Bomb mix-up, and you basically had to guess for the character from there. So again, he fills out a lot of these requirements. But as you can kind of tell, not too many of these characters are kind of filling out every single one of them, because very few characters have been able to do that in the past. Except for you, right? I had Lab Coat in the back because she's another good example of an anchor or comeback character. I don't think I have to actually explain her too much. Original Lab Coat was original Lab Coat. And for the reference, I think he is actually a better comeback character than even a Lab Coat when she initially dropped. So I know that's a pretty bold statement, so let me explain why. So for starters, let's get this out the way, right? If he is starting at level 0, this is not the best situation for him, but it is okay, because the context of when you're going to be losing in a match is, chances are you're going to lose. If you're losing, because this game is so snowball heavy, especially when you lose one character, there's a good chance he might just be by himself. And let's say the most common situation is both your characters got washed, right? They both got 2 touch. You didn't expect him to die so quickly, so you didn't burn Spark. Whatever the case, you could have been saving Spark for him. Whatever the case, you find yourself in this situation. This situation, the reason I think he is so strong is because you have to look at how this situation plays out, right? One, all he has to do is hit you once, and the chances are he will have enough meter to get to a high enough level to threaten you. Keep in mind, the level that he gets to once he is the best comeback character is actually level 3. It is not even level 7. I think that is a big, very common misconception that a lot of people have about this character. But level 3 is when he becomes too much. So all he has to do is hit you once, and again, going back to solo mix-up, it's actually pretty decent because back fist is pretty fast. And even if you can react to back fist, he has a cross-up JH, and he has a same side option, which is JS, which is very reminiscent of Vegito. He can do something like this. You know, GT might be a bit small for this to work on, but this does work on basically majority of the cast, right? And this is a unreactable left-right. So his ability to hit you by himself is actually pretty up there. And the issue is, any of these hits turn into a really advantageous situation for him because, again, he gets into his strongest state as a comeback character, which is level 3. So I keep saying that, so let's start going over why, right? So let's start him at level 1. At level 1, the more important thing is he just has access to the strong solo neutral between him using this. Very reminiscent of Majin 20 on the base Vegeta. This is very strong for, you know, just waiting. Kind of what I showed earlier with Majin 21. Just wait, sniper assist out. Let him choose when he wants to take his turn. These are very advantageous on block and has very little whiff recovery, so he can kind of just get away with shooting them, right? For reference, his JM recovers slower than his JS. And his JM recovers very fast, so that's just how much he can kind of get away with doing this, right? So his solo neutral is very strong for a solo character. He kind of has the ability to just kind of wait and relax and choose when he wants to go in. Once he's level 1, his staggers, obviously like I showed earlier, is very strong, right? So he's filling out 2 requirements. I know I said damage isn't that important because of how Limit Break works, but you got to keep in mind he is still one of the most damaging characters in the game, even at level 1. A lot of people think he has to get higher level to do a lot of damage. No. He practically outdamages a lot of characters once he is 1. So, with that being said, you gotta now look at how he works with mix-up on hit, right? He has a very strong level 3 mix. If he is at level 1, he has a 50-50, albeit not that much reward, but back this, good reward, right? So this is all a handy-dandy, right? But this is not why he is the best comeback character. It starts mattering once he's at level 3. If he somehow managed to get level 3, and again, given the context of when comebacks happen, you're typically going to have a lot of resources built from your other characters. He starts becoming too much, because on top of having, you know, these mix-ups and stuff, he has access to another mix-up, which is, reminiscent of Red Gogeta, he has double air dash, which can be tricky to deal with, so this is another option he has. But more importantly, his neutral becomes way better because he has 2 air dashes, so having good movement is very tied to having strong neutral. So he has some of the best movement options in the game, meaning his neutral, his solo neutral, just got that much more potent because he has more options to bait you with and to play around with, right? On top of that, he now has a very strong level 3 mix-up, meaning his reward on hit is matching these other characters I gave an example of, because in the corner, since he has 2 air dashes, this is just a 50-50. You do 1 air dash, land, press 5L, or 2 air dashes and press an air button, and that is a 50-50, right? Like such. And this will always kill you, so he has a strong extra character once he's at level 3. Okay, this alone would not make him the best comeback character, so why am I stalling? So here's what we're going to talk about, right? Let's take into context if he has sparking. If he comes in by himself, and let's just, for the sake of the argument, let's put him at his weakest form, which is 0, right? If he comes in, especially with like this much meter, hitting somebody with sparking is not that difficult, especially in this game right now, because these system mechanics are strong enough to open them up in sparking. The issue is, if he does hit you in sparking, he goes straight to 7. And let me put it into terms why this is too strong, right? For one, once he's at level 7, he is the strongest character this game has ever seen. This video isn't really explaining what level 7 adult Gohan is. It's why he's strong as a comeback character, but to quickly preface it, he has a plus on block DP, typically safe, but he can cancel to make it plus. His EX DP version, I don't have the combo, but this will actually result in a TOD if you have the right combo, and he does so much damage to the point where everything he touches you with, whether it was a super dash to even light legs, he's probably going to do around 80% into building 3 bars, into putting you in the same level 3 situation I just showed you, right? So he has the strongest defense in this game by far, the best block strings in this game has ever seen by far, because he has true reverse beat from any button to any button, the highest damage output in the game by far, and like I said, it doesn't really matter because limit break is a thing, but again, he has so much damage to the point where he's one-touching you off certain starters now, so he went past the not mattering portion. He has so much damage to the point where it starts mattering again, because it doesn't matter because everyone would 2-touch you, right? So it's just like, as long as the character doesn't start one-touching you, it doesn't really matter. He starts one-touching you. He can even TOD you off a JM. I don't have the combo, but you're gonna have to take my word for it, right? So, again, why is he the best? So for one, once he is at level 3, let's dial it back down, his solo Sparky mix-up is probably the best I've ever seen. Because he has access to 2 air dashes, he can basically do button, and air dash twice. Meaning, every time he air dashes at you, this is a 50-50, because he can go low. So once he puts you in a block string, he starts 50-50ing you over and over and over again. And these are inescapable, unreactable 50-50s. You cannot do anything to stop these for the most part. And if you get hit by one, again, context of the situation, he's in sparking, and the timer freezes, he hits you once with this, you're going to take a lot of damage. bad combo, but just example. You're gonna take a lot of damage, and he's going to either put you in a level 3 guesser character, or worst case scenario, go to level 7. And again, the context of what's happening here is these characters historically were such strong comeback characters because they had all these things, plus some of the even more broken ones. When they were in sparking, they kind of just started robbing you, doing all these very strong sequences. But once their sparking was over, then you're just dealing with the strong typical comeback character, right? Like once Z Broly's sparking was over, like yes, he might have a lot of meter, but he's no longer in sparking, so it's not the worst case scenario, right? If this character hits you while he is in sparking, it does not matter that his sparking has ended. The worst have already come to pass where he is level 7. So once this happens, the game is almost over. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but what can you do at this point? He has some of the strongest solo neutral, the best block strings, the best damage, while he's in sparking, some of the strongest mix-ups in sparking. His reward for hitting you in sparking is some of the highest in the game. And once his sparking is over, now you have to deal with the strongest character this game has ever seen. This is including his Season 1 counterpart. So, long story short, one of the strongest while making the comeback and in sparking and whatnot. But once his sparking is over, he did something no other character historically has done, which is even when his sparking is over, the damage have already been done. You see what I mean? He's probably already killed a few characters because his sparking sequence, as I've shown you, is too strong, right? It's very reminiscent of the other very potent comeback characters. And even when it's over, now you have to fight level 7 adult Gohan because he got level 7 easily by getting sparking, right? Or through sparking and hitting you. And God forbid this ever happens where you come in with 6 bars even without sparking, because some people are like, what if he doesn't have sparking? Let's say you're playing neutral. Imagine if he did something like this, right? He just pulls up randomly, right? And he just does this. You couldn't react to a very hard to react to option. He got to level 7 and you lost. This is why me and actually a lot of other pretty strong players think he is the strongest comeback character to ever grace this game's history. So like always, if you guys like this type of content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next video. Peace.